Welcome to Melbourne CSS. Yay! First time in 2 years, which is ridiculous. Well, first time in person in 2 years, because we did the online thing and then it was like I'm talking to a screen after looking at a screen all day and talking to people on a screen, except now I can't see the screen, all I can see is my slides. It's not really very exciting, so we stopped and now we're back again because, yay, in-person people. If you are on YouTube, that is also okay. We accept you wherever you happen to be, especially if you're not in Melbourne, because you know it's very hard to commute sometimes if you don't actually live in the city. So we are back. There's a hashtag which I don't think anyone has ever used. I have not, but if you do, then make yourself feel good about it because why not? The @ usually means that we're on lots of social media platforms, but I am not a social media person, so I've got a Twitter account and that's it. So if you tweet us, then that's the one. If you don't, any other Instagram, whatever, no idea. You can probably like set up your own ghost Mel CSS account and do anything. And please, yes. To the people online, especially right now, I want to see what you've come up with by the end of this, and it would be great. Is my presenter working? Does anything work anymore? Probably not. We have a code of conduct because this is a public event. The too long didn't read of the code of conduct is please be nice to people. We do take this very seriously. If anything does happen, then I very much need to know and I will take action. But do read, I mean, you know, short version, long version. Basically be nice to other people and be a reasonable human being and we should all be okay. Hey, it's actually working now, good. There is Wi-Fi. Everyone kind of has working phones and stuff these days, but if you need Wi-Fi, there is Wi-Fi. I probably should have had that on the intro thing so you could have done that before, but who knows. The weird bit is we actually use this for our own corporate laptops as well. So we have no restrictions whatsoever and you can do the same. So now's your chance to set up that Instagram account or Twitch or I don't know, other stuff. And I read I've actually spelled it correctly, so you might even get on the Wi-Fi network.
Will that be live streaming your Wi-Fi password to YouTube?
It's shown on the screens around the office, so it doesn't really make any difference.
All right.
Please try. Thank you to our sponsor for tonight, the people who have given the venue and the drinks and I see the lights falling down again, and the food. Conveniently my employer, which makes my life a lot easier. So serve in, yes. Whatever. Oh, you're not meant to actually clap. That's it's Australia, we don't do that. On this impossible to decipher URL, you'll find Flat White. Flat White is a general kind of web kind of chat group. Yeah, taking a picture of this and then you can get your phone to interpret it and click on it. So it's like a QR code without a QR code. Flat White is set up so anyone anywhere in Australia can just talk about random web things. Like you might even be working on a problem and it's like, oh no, I need someone else who I can talk to who understands CSS. Or there are other languages possibly as well I've heard of, I don't know. But you can ask questions on here and we'll sit and laugh at you or cry with you or maybe even give you an answer. But you know, other people, other developers in all sorts of places around the world. Well, Australia, sorry. Moving on to our HTML element of the month. This is a CSS meetup. Of course, we talk about HTML. I can't see my slides ahead, so this is going to be really professional. Yes, our element of the month, because this is a CSS meetup, is not even an element, it's a property, and the property is inert. Browser support is not actually that bad. You know, usually you show these things and it's like, yeah, it works in Chrome Canary maybe in 10 years. But inert is mostly there. And actually I have a trend for all the Can I Use screens I'm using tonight where Firefox is the bad one. Like is Firefox the new IE? Or is Firefox the new Safari, which is the new... It's complicated.
Safari's not new IE.
Yes, but anyway. All right. Professional. What on earth does inert do? The reason I should explain, the reason we have HTML element of the month is there's no like Melbourne HTML, because no one loves HTML. There's no other city that I know of that does an HTML meetup. So it's the long lost thing we use all the time, and yet no one seems to give it any attention. And there are a lot of HTML elements and properties that no one's ever heard of before that sometimes deserve love, sometimes they really do not deserve love. Yet it's worth us highlighting them at least once every month, which is not really every month anyway, but you know. So this is inert. Inert is a property. You can add it to a thing and make something inert. But what do you actually do with it? What's it do? It renders something inoperable. And it's inoperable to screen readers, to everything except visually. So you need, well, what's that thing? CSS. CSS will save you. To demonstrate though, if I tab here, I'm on my normal active thing. This is nothing. This is not even, I can't even select the text on there. It's completely inoperable. All through native HTML. Whoa. JavaScript is redundant. Whoa. CSS to make things work. I mean, this is really crude because I hate global things like this. If only there was a way of scoping CSS and doing that kind of stuff, but I guess no such thing. So you kind of, I mean, this is not accessible at all. But at least it looks like you can't do anything with it. Why does this element actually exist? I mean, yeah, you can render stuff inoperable, which is great. But the real reason this is here is to support the dialogue element. So when you have a dialogue and you want it to be a modal, everything else can be made inert. No more code, no more focus shifts, anything else. You can just add inert to the parent and everything underneath is now inoperable. Brilliant. And that was our HTML element of the month. CSS color of the month. I say month, like we've never run monthly on Melbourne CSS and won't. I do not have the energy. There are like several hundred named colors of CSS for some reason. I don't recommend you ever use them because it's really like hard to understand. You should just use the hex codes or RGB or, you know, the many variants of color. However, we have them here, so for no reason whatsoever, every single time I'll share one with you. So the color of this month is midnight blue. Saturday is the AFL Grand Final. My team has not made it. This is the closest named color I could get to Carlton color. I mean, not really. And it's looking pretty purplish as I look at it here as well. So it's almost Fremantle, which is just not good. But this is the only reason I've chosen midnight blue for the month. I mean, that's more logic than I'll usually put into this kind of thing. So, you know, keep your expectations low as we go. I do have a lightning speaker, which is awesome. But most of the talks tonight are me because I could not get anyone else. And I have actually prepped a thing. What's new in CSS? So much stuff has happened in the last couple of years, and we've had no CSS meetups to actually talk about them, which is absolutely awful. So in practice, anyone who's come close enough to me, which admittedly is not that many people, I have just say, have you seen all the new stuff in CSS that's going on at the moment? There's so much happening. And they're really enthused and want me to tell them everything about it. It's awesome. So I'll talk about three things in particular tonight. The first one is has. Has will be, I think, my favorite new CSS selector. Well, this is a pseudo element, isn't it? What is this? Who knows? What is it? Pseudo selector. There we go. I don't even code much these days, so you know, I type stuff into Google and it tells me things. And I end up on the Stack Overflow and it goes wrong. So has is almost like a holy grail selector for CSS. Like grid has turned up in the last few years, and grid lets us do layout things that we wished we could do for a long time and just swore at our screens instead when it didn't work. Has is very similar to this. The number of things that this is going to unlock are ridiculous. I mean, it's been in development for years, But even now, as it's rolling out, and like, look, Firefox, oh, Firefox. Is Firefox the new Safari, which is the new IE? It is behind a flag at least, so they're getting there, which is good. And it's convenient that we're talking about this now because Safari 16's just launched, which carries a lot of the features I'm talking about. So suddenly Safari is the golden child. But they've got Jen Simmons with them now, so she will make it good. So support is very good. So we will get it into Firefox pretty soon, which is nice. Samsung Internet, does anyone use that in Australia? Does anyone have stats? You are the one user?
No, I had a client back in New Zealand once and I couldn't figure out what on earth was the problem, and it turned out they were using Samsung Internet because if you look at it, it looks like it's Chrome, but it's not. It's
Yep.
like a number of versions behind. That person, he was the CEO of a big company back home.
It's the only reason we support things like
So
this.
people use Samsung Internet is the new IE. Boom.
Opera Mini. Yeah. Yeah, I know. No one even bothers versioning Opera Mini because it's just like, oh, not even going to talk about that. That's too ugly. I has. Yes, I've done these in the wrong order because I am a professional. Really basic things. This is kind of like a parent selector. And I've stolen this from CSS Tricks. And if you don't know CSS Tricks, please know CSS Tricks. Because it's far better reference for any CSS anything than most other things out there. Do not do W3 schools. Just don't at all. Bad. So really basic idea. If a div has a paragraph tag, let's call the background red. And most CSS demos usually do terrible things like this. It's like, yeah, I'm never going to use that again. That's great. In practice, we can do really great things like this. If I have a H2, if I have a subtitle, I want a bottom margin of 1.5 rem. Pretty normal, right? What if I have a header group that has a H2 that also has a subtitle? Then I actually want to shrink the margin down, right? Because you don't want the thing to be spaced out drastically. And this looks like this one over here, which is pretty awesome. That's very little code to actually pull that off. And this is possible now, whereas before, like classes and all sorts of magic to do that. Now, you could probably do that with a sibling selector or something, but you know, a lot more thinking into that, how that happens. You can do other things like, you know, something that has an image inside it. Let's render it entirely differently. Again, this is pretty new, so people are really coming up with crazy demos of what we can pull off with this. Most of the things that where we had to do, actually, if you're using a reactive model, it probably doesn't really count that much. But if you weren't and you had to use JavaScript because there's no way to select the thing otherwise, or you had to have a class, you don't have to do that anymore. Instead, you can just write really crazily nested CSS to pull it off. So has is a thing that's very much emerging. Once Firefox gets support for it, even though not enough people probably use it these days, then it might take off even bigger. But all the more reason for you to read up on it now, because it will be enormous. It will change how we code, I think. That's a good slide. Come back to me. I had this happening before. Keynote's usually nice. There we go. Oh, I've skipped ahead. Okay. Container queries. We've gotten used to media queries where we can like, wow, responsive web design. What is this, 1990? We can now adapt to the screen sizes, but then what if the box itself should know about what's around it? I mean, you know, encapsulation, all that kind of stuff, those programming principles. And support, like, oh, Firefox, where are you with this? They are working on it. It's not behind a flag yet. It's not on a tech preview, but you know, it's getting there. Opera Mini, sadly, no support, but kind of ruins it for everyone, doesn't it? IE is still on here. IE should not still be on here. No one does IE. The container queries, I mean, the best way to look at them is actually have, you need to go responsive basically for it. This is Aishadid's lab, which is really awesome. But if you search for CSS tricks with container queries, they point you to this. It's the one site for everything. Some of these demos are a bit sketchy, but some of them are very, very good. If I can remember the ones that I liked, let's just have a look at this one. The code looks very similar to what we have. So you have a container and then whatever rules. That's very, very much like media queries, but you contain that one element. In this one, as we change the width, the container itself is controlling how it renders. Nothing else tells it what's going on. So you can write that one component in a library and put it out to the world, and you know how it's going to render. Absolutely extraordinary. I think this is the fun one. No, that's the bad one. I've not done much prep for tonight. Does it show? Maybe this one? No, that one doesn't work. No, it doesn't work. Ah, this is good. Right, so watching this subtitle over here is its own separate part of the screen, so that won't get touched by anything. But the width of the other parts changes, and when we run out of room, the layout changes. But again, there's no grid telling us how that's done. I don't need to say this container when it's underneath something else. I can just write it in its own encapsulated self.
Do you think container queries will have an effect on how you use grid? Like, will you potentially use grid less because you have more containers?
Exactly. So this is one of those classic things. Just like has, there's a heap of code that will disappear with it. So container queries, same thing. It's going to be very, very good. There was one that I liked somewhere. Maybe, yes, this is a fun one. So this is a grid. As I'm shrinking the things inside, this is not working. There was one that did work. Now the browser's not operating. This is really crude because it just changes the color. Wow, that's great. I'll probably give up at this point because I'm kind of going beyond what I really need to show you. I'm showing the wrong one again. Maybe that one. Tables, who does tables? Anyway. Container queries, absolutely revolutionary. Not that far off. I mean, Firefox will be there soon enough. And yeah, it will really change how we write. Last one I'll talk about is subgrid. Subgrid has been on the cards for a while. And look, Firefox is suddenly good again. Firefox is not the new Safari, which is not the new IE. And Safari's landed this in Safari 16 as well. And Chrome. What are you doing, Chrome? Awesome, Chrome. Opera Mini, surprisingly, no support here at all. Counting on you, Opera Mini. Even Firefox for Android's got better support, which is fascinating. Subgrid is something that is really awesome if you know grid theory. And if you are designing stuff on the web, you should know grid theory ideally, because if you don't, it changes how you think about how you lay stuff out. One of the problems if you learnt grid theory and design things years ago is all these things you learnt, that how we lay stuff out on print and other media, you learn them and then you get on the web and you can't do any of it. And it's like, great, I know the theory, but now I need to break and destroy everything I know in order to do this thing. We have grid now in CSS. Subgrid comes with that. So we're able to pull off, this is a really basic demo of what we're able to do. But this bit here, I should actually zoom in on it maybe a bit. There is a whole contained grid inside the other grid. And you can have relative relationships and all sorts of things. Pretty similar to the idea of container queries, where it's a thing that lives entirely on its own. So you don't need to create a whole grid nested inside. It'll take a bit of, like, quite a few demos to actually understand this properly of how we can use it. Again, if you know grid theory, you'll look at this and say, yep, sorted. I'm too rusty, so I can't even think of anything good. But when it comes along, we'll be able to pull off layouts that we have not been able to up to this point, which is very good.
I think one of the things with subgrid that opens up is that with grid by itself, if you need to create another grid within that, you can't use the same track lines as the original grid.
Yeah, there are limitations. Yeah.
So you try and line something up and it'd be really, really hard. So what subgrid does is it allows you to use the grid lines of the parent grid.
Yes, for people at home who couldn't hear that, and I have to remember to repeat things because the only way anyone can hear anything is with this. That's what I should have said if I'd remembered. Subgrid is essentially, it respects the parent's layout and grid lines, whereas if you just put a grid inside another grid, you get none of that. I mean, back in the days, if you've been around too long, we used to nest tables. But we had fixed pixels anyway, so it fixed itself. There was no problem. Keynote is given up again. Come back, Keynote. Thank you, Keynote. And that's some of the new things coming along in CSS. Questions at this point, even though people have been saying stuff anyway. The YouTube crowd is saying nothing because it's like the lounge at the back. They're just playing pool quietly. Yes.
So does has work with any other selector? So you could use it for like focus states and that kind of thing?
So the question is, does has work with anything else? And yes, it does. You can even put them in sequentially. If you're familiar with things like is and not, exactly the same rules apply, which is very, very good. Excellent. Yes, question.
Does inert stop page behavior, like scrolling? Like if you've got a whole document basically inert,
If you had scrolling within the element,
or if the element overflowed the page.
but the inert stops interaction for anything that's nested underneath it. So if you had scrolling behavior and you had inert above it, then it would stop the scrolling. But the thing that's inert inside, it's still, like, it takes up space still.
Okay. You can still scroll the inert stuff.
Yeah, if your parent container is not inert. Yeah.
So you could use it like as to disable the body scroll. You could use that.
But the whole thing, as long as the parent is inert, then everything else is good. And that's like, yeah, but dialogues. Like you render something or anything that you render on top and you want the rest just to stop doing stuff. I mean, for accessibility alone, this is just enormous. The number of times...
So hard to track keyboard accessibility inside the modal, it just wants to escape.
Well, the horrid thing people do is when they say, oh, I've got JavaScript, I can control tabbable or not with JavaScript. Nothing could possibly go wrong with that. But with inert, we can make it work properly. Remember, JavaScript bad, CSS good. Except that's HTML anyway.
I remember having to put like spans that were hidden with customized tab indexes to like trap the tabs in the modal.
Yeah.
That was a while ago.
As soon as, but it's a recipe for keyboard trap as soon as you start editing focus states. Oh, bad memories coming back with that. So it's okay, it's all right, it's done, it's passed. This is the bit where I say, does anyone have a lightning talk perchance? And luckily I've goaded someone into agreeing to do this. So please come forward.
All good to go. Can I take your...
Have a HTML.
Oh no, I need an adapter.
Have an adapter. I will even give you a free microphone.
Yeah. On the digits.
They didn't talk back, so don't expect any.
Hello, people on the internet. Hi. Hello, people locally. Hi, I'm Bennett Hitchcock. I am a front-end web developer. And how do we bring this up on the?
Should technically.
Oh, look at my display. Doop-a-doop-a-doo.
This is the bit where I was meant to be doing questions while this was happening. Maybe I should have just asked if anyone knows how to run a meetup earlier. It's not registering.
My USB ports have been a bit funny lately, to be honest.
Okay.
Doop-a-doop-a-doo.
You can use my laptop if you're running off a site.
Yeah,
Maybe we do that.
that might just be easier. I'll leave you that and I'll...
To be fair, meetups are all about doing stuff awkwardly.
Yeah,
So
totally.
if we ran this seamlessly, then people would be asking questions. Do you have a browser of choice?
Go on Firefox just to give them give them a bit of love tonight.
Heard of Firefox?
Yeah, so my name's Bennett Hitchcock. I moved over from New Zealand at the start of the year. Worked for a few agencies, but mostly just do web dev freelance by myself at the moment. I call my little thing starlifter.co. Autocorrected to .nz, that's interesting. Does anyone use Panic Nova? The Panic, the code editor? Everyone's probably using VS Code, right? Oh, anyway, I ripped off their JavaScript that they had on their website and I chucked it on mine. But I asked them nicely, I said, can I use it? They were like, no. But if you change, here's what we originally based it on. If you base it on that, then it's fine. So anyway. So yeah, so my little lightning talks, and I haven't touched this code in about 6 months, 2 years, I reckon. But I also DJ, and I'm a big fan of this guy, Errol Elkin, and I was trying to teach myself CSS Grid. So I decided to make this gig flyer. I wonder if I can find the original flyer.
I think live Googling's like live coding.
Scary.
Everything stops.
Yeah, here he is. So that's one of the variations. So he's done a series of these gigs, so that's one of the variations on the design. And I wanted to make it in CSS, so that's what I did. So I've got, I'll bring up the code, and then I can talk to the code. Is that a blog post? Is that going to go to my blog post?
You can't just tell us about
How does my website work?
it.
Yeah.
Has code.
Has code. So it's got CSS Grid, and that's to control what lines. So I could bring up the inspector. Yes, inspector. Boom. Div, 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 div.
You're saying this is semantic, right?
Yeah, it's totally semantic and accessible. So yeah, I laid it all out, and then I just used some CSS animation to have everything out of the screen to start, and then I got a little bit of JavaScript, so after a second it brings it all in. And then I went all 90s on it, and I made myself a little cursor icon. So that's the icon for the flyer gig thing. And it's not much else to it. Just a lot of
Are you gridding here, or are you
This is
fixing?
that's all grid.
Yeah. Is it grid?
Layout.
Looking at how the selector's working on this grid.
Firefox you should be able to turn on all those
Yeah.
lines. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was good. It was a cool exercise because I drew it out on a piece of paper and then like marked out the lines, did it across, and then yeah. So it was a nice little. It was kind of a bit like CSS paint by numbers. Yeah, it was quite therapeutic. So yeah, that's it really. Any questions?
Have you sent it to Mr. Alkin?
I did. Yeah, I sent it to him. He got back to me. Oh, the question was, did I send it to the DJ? And yes, I did send it to the DJ, to the producer.
Did you send you a cease and desist?
No, it was good. So, and I've bought lots of his records. So if he was to get grumpy with me, I'd be like, right, won't buy your records then. Yeah, no, he was good. He was like, oh, cool, man. Yeah, cheers, thanks for that kind of response. Yeah. Yeah. Think.
All the bits are just divs and border
Yeah.
radiuses?
Yeah. Divs and border radius.
It's like tables, but 20 years ahead.
Yeah. See, look, there's a little, so that'll have a background with a,
Around
oh, it was around, border radius. Yeah. Oh, that's right. And this was kind of my first attempt at using CSS custom properties. So I tried to put all the colors in with custom properties. It's a triangle. Love me a triangle.
You said you wrote the script for the animation.
Yeah.
Could you have CSS'd that?
I can't remember. Because how would you, do a CSS, how would you do a delayed 1 second animation? You can? There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
The first one is duration.
So once again, JavaScript's redundant.
I think I was trying to do it in CSS, like that delay, and I couldn't figure out, and I was just, because I was trying to make it pure CSS, and I was just like, ugh, I'll just do it. I'll just get lazy. Slippery slope. Oh, that's my tracking code.
So you've got
Sadness.
about like 300k of JavaScript for that, right?
Yeah.
Included moment.js for the time. It's fine.
Yeah.
Put in Lodash.
Yeah. So that's me.
That's very cool. Awesome.
That is it. Thank you. Boom.
Have you loaded any viruses on my machine?
Only want to cry. Bye, internet.
Hi, internet. I'm preparing a workshop on presenting, and one of the things I note is you should wear a shirt, because trying to put stuff on t-shirts is bad. That's what that was you just saw. We're at the end. I'm also responsible for Men Championing Change, which is a gender equality meetup. We've not done anything in even longer than Melbourne CSS, because it's a very much in-person kind of thing. Although the Sydney one is reasonably active and they do stream sometimes. It's one of those things where you can talk about absolutely anything in a non-incriminating way. It's a friendly environment, and especially since it's gender equality, there are a lot of things that come up there that people would otherwise feel quite awkward about talking about. And instead of just saying, like, get in the corner, people will respond in a constructive way, because it's that kind of meetup. I will resurrect it at some point here in Melbourne again, but, note it as a thing. I was going to say, if you care about gender equality, but if you don't, then I've got a problem. In-person stuff's happening again, apparently. Web Directions Summit is coming to the other city, the one that we've got our hypersonic missiles trained on. This is December 1 and 2. There's code leaders on November 30th, so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I think a fair chunk of our audience is speaking there, aren't you? So that is coming up, which is very good. But we don't like spending money, so why don't we save money? There is a code which may or may not work. If it doesn't, please message me and I'll ping the organisers and make it work. If you use the code MELBCSS, you'll save $200 off, I think, the silver or higher categories. So basically you pay for the classic thing and you get the silver, which is very nice. And that will apply all the way through, I think you got till, I'm reading here, September 30 is when the cutoff for the current early bird and so on. In the before times, there was Web Directions Code here in Melbourne around June, July-ish. And Summit was the one in Sydney as well. I don't know if Code's coming back in a hurry. So this is like our one time in Australia where we can talk all sorts of web things. And Sydney's not that far away, even if we don't like them very much, it's okay. So be there, I'll be there, Phil, you'll be there. There you go. A fair percentage of the audience is already there, so you'll know someone.
So it's first and the second.
Yeah. There's an extra day the day before. If you're like tech lead level-ish and above, it's probably aimed at you, I guess. Which one are you at?
Summit.
Ah,
I've been to co-leaders before,
yeah,
and yeah, definitely for sort of leadership stuff.
yeah. I helped curate this year's, so yeah. Doesn't mean anything. Anyway, here's a blank slide. Usually I have a split or presenter view and not, but I've not done that tonight. Why was that blank? I have no idea. There was script on that previous slide that went wrong. Oh dear, who would rely on that? Usually after in-person meetups, we would find a local bar or something. I've not lived in Melbourne that long. I've not been in this office that long. I found a German brewery place and I like German beer. So if you're up for a pint later on, except it won't be a pint, it'll be a metric half litre or something like that, because that's the superior way, then here's the really complicated instructions of how to get there from here. Although topologically, it doesn't look anything like this at all. This is so much simpler than the reality, yeah. It's a complete lie. Otherwise, you have been at Melbourne CSS. You could have been on your couch tonight, waiting, or actually celebrating and bringing in the super, super long weekend. If you don't like football, you love football because it gives you a day off. If you don't like royalty, you love royalty because they... Cut. Instead, you chose to be here or at home on the couch watching on YouTube. But thank you for sharing your time for Melbourne CSS. Once again, thank you, kind sponsor, for drinks. Like, take stuff, I don't know. There seems to be heaps of food left over, so maybe, yeah, cut. If I have a job on Monday, it's going to be a miracle. We'll be back again in November. We usually run on a 2-month cadence. At least we did in the long ago. It's better if I don't talk and someone else does, and that means that you find people and you find people need to actually do something. If you're not sure about a topic, if you've never spoken before, the only reason I'm here and not there is because I'm here and not there. I don't have any special skills. You've seen my terrible slides and everything else. If you do need help, I'm very, very happy to take my time to help you out. Even if you're sitting there and saying, I can't speak in front of people, it's quite okay. Yeah, anything you want. Not even sure what to talk about, quite okay. And then next time, you'll be here and you'll be saying, yes, JavaScript, what is that? Just like me. Otherwise, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. And now for the after show.